So please stop interrupting me. I have something very important to say. Is it okay? Salga of the glass of wine. I would really like to introduce our featured poet now. And not because she quit her day job to become a writer, which is what we should all do, and some of us have, which is great. But because she's also a lovely woman and somebody that I cannot wait to have come up onto our stage for the first time and share with us her work. Shweta Vikram is a Pushcart nominee for 2010 and the author of 2 chapbooks of poetry, Because All Is Not Lost and Kaleidoscope, An Asian Journey of Colors. She's also the co-author of two poetry collections, and her first fiction novel, Perfectly Untraditional, is scheduled for release in April of 2011. Shweta's work has appeared in literary journals, online publications, and anthologies across the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, India, New Zealand, and the Philippines. Shweta was awarded a Park Scholarship for Voices of Our Nation's Arts Foundation in San Francisco. She has held several artist residencies in Europe and America and worked on collaborative projects with artists from Zimbabwe and Australia. She's seen at poetry readings across the United States, Europe, and Asia. And Shweta also teaches creative writing workshops. She's a graduate of Columbia University and lives in New York City with her husband, who is here and photographing this whole thing. So now we get to have her here with us. So let's give her an incredibly warm welcome. And I can't wait to have her up here.
Oh wow, this is right.
Where were you on the 14th?
I'd rather not answer that. I'm completely inept when it comes to this. Oh. This is good. Yeah. So tempted to break into a song and dance sequence here, like the lights and everything is just perfect. Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I see familiar faces aside from my husband, my friends Amy and Roy are there. And thanks to everybody else. Thank you, Marina, for organizing this beautiful evening. And a big round of applause to Terraza Cafe. This is such an amazing venue. Seriously, I want to break into a song and dance sequence. And Happy New Year to everyone. If I happen to stare at someone, I'm not really staring at you, I'm pretty much just escaping the light. So, how are we doing with the drinks tonight? Are we doing good with the drinks? The reason why I'm asking you that is because I could start reading 2 relatively solemn poems and then get into something crappier. And I like it when people are drunk when I'm reading sad stuff.
Should all get around with tequila shots or something?
Oh, that would be awesome. I have a bad throat, or I would like take anybody on for a challenge. So this is my book which came out over summer. It's called Because All Is Not Lost. And there's a reason why I want to read the first couple of poems from this one, since this is my first book, so it's just special. And the book is basically about moving on. You know, we've all dealt with grief at some point of our life or the other, and grief doesn't always mean losing a dear one. It could be something as simple as your favorite dress getting a tear. I'm not trying to be shallow here, but you know, grief is so relative. So that's what all the poems in this book, what they try to do is end on a positive note and sort of talk about there is a silver lining at the end of a bad day. And the first poem that I'd like to read, very literal, the title is, it's called Moving On. Loss, like the seeds on strawberries, is littered everywhere, drowning faith in its bulk. A letter cannot swim across the ocean if the griever is insistent and smiles reach only halfway through the beat. The effort has to come from the reef that's hidden underneath the guilt of mortal burdens, the caves of hopelessness. Lost, a bookmark for embalmed pages marked with stains that should be revisited only to learn, not memorize the events. Most poems in this collection are based on true stories, in that either I've been through that, or a friend or dear one, or I've met someone, or like an anecdote that's based on that. And this is a poem called Let Me Go, is about a friend's cousin. Let me go. It's your will, not mine. We know if I were 18, I would change the direction of ink. But I'm a prisoner, a birdie inside a legal cage. You fear my loss, we know. I'm a rock sunk to the bottom, a fish caught in a net, wondering when the cleaver will hit. Pink has turned brown. We know my breathing rasps my nerves. I hide. Clouds make me claustrophobic, crying onto the landscapes of my struggles. I pray to the dirt near grandma. We know mine won't be the firstborns to enter the courtyard. When names are carved with bleeding roses, the end wears a white wave of relief. How afraid I am, you don't know. I don't want to look at what I leave behind. But you taught me to be fair. I spent my first 15 years in your cocoon. Isn't it only right that Daddy gets his share? He's cold and lonely, even amongst the stars. How many of us were in the city when the snowstorm hit New York? This was the first time I did not crib. Like, it snowed and I smiled. It snowed more and I smiled. And the roads weren't plowed and I still smiled. And this was all because last year, maybe about 10 months ago, I was at a residency in upstate New York. And we got snowed in. We were like 5 of us. And this is a place where I was told there were bears, there was moose, and every animal that I've read about or seen pictures of in my textbook. I did not ever want to encounter. It was so quiet that I would actually stream KTU and Pandora and then go to bed. And it's made me so much more appreciative of being snowed in a city. And that's just my take on bucolic living. Country living ain't my thing. Waking up to the sound of my breath, hurling hostile stones, I bury my face until the morning mist nudges me. The blue bed spread like the hips of a 17-year-old cheerleader over the angry February trees. The breeze, grunting mother bear, announcing its unwelcome arrival, and the spring, lurking around, shivers. The silence of the hills, the faith in unlocked doors, and cars makes me write verses of sadness every night. The voluptuous orange in the sunset, an introduction to the odor of solitude. I wait for a firefly to keep me company. My shadow hides behind the feast of termites as darkness perforates and hisses, "You're alone." I mutter half sinking, hated the hills growing up, hate bucolic living even today.